Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. I'm back. I just finished spending 7 days in sweet, sexy silence. I said, let me shut the up. Let me be quiet for a week. And it was incredible and very hard and very intense. And it wasn't a vipassana because I did some Googling and then I Googled it one time and I saw the description for vipassana and it said that it's like 3 a.m. to 9 p.m. and it's a whole thing. So it was full days of walking and sitting meditation, but the program I did, which was a part of the Timeless Wisdom training, a 2-year program I'm doing focused on healing personal, ancestral, and collective trauma with Thomas Hubel. It also featured Q&As and we had therapists on site in case we had really intense processes. Because the point wasn't to just sit there and suffer in silence. It was like, if you need help, get some support so that you can clear that energy out and be able to continue to sit. And I took some notes on 7 things that I wish I knew / learned as a result of the retreat, and I want to share them with you in case you yourself are thinking of doing a silent retreat or a vipassana, or you already have and you want to compare notes. So that's what this video is going to be about. Before we get into it, thank you subscribers and thank you Patreon people for being the sexiest to ever do it. As a heads up, I'm actually bringing my newsletter back, so if you want, you can sign up in the link below, and I'm gonna share essentially things I've been learning and watching and reading that I think you all would really love, because often I'll make YouTube videos about it, but I only make basically 1 video a week and it has 1 topic. And so in this newsletter, which I'll be sending out weekly, I'll be sharing a bunch of the different resources that I've really been enjoying and loving. So sign up if you want, and follow me on my coaching IG. I'm at Coaching by Chimdi. I'm a creative coach and I help artists and designers create consistently and authentically. So the first thing that I learned, and knowing it would have been really helpful, but of course we learn things exactly when we're supposed to, is the way we use music to self-soothe. So if you do meditation, you may have found that while you're meditating, you may have a song that's stuck in your head. That was a question someone asked during the training, was about what happens when you have these songs replaying, and that's something I often experience. And what I found is that I had a lot of fear walking into the retreat. The experience of trauma healing, as you can imagine, is very intense and very vulnerable, and I was very scared of what was gonna happen. I'd never done a silent retreat before. I was scared of the intensity of the emotions that I knew I would experience, because consistently whenever I do any of the Timeless Wisdom training retreats, it's so emotionally intense. And I remember when I landed in the airport, my heart was beating so fast because I had so much fear. And so what I did, because I had a little bit of time before the folks that I was getting a ride with were gonna arrive, is I sat down, I put on my headphones, and I just played all of my favorite songs and sang along and tried to calm myself down. During the retreat, I found those exact same songs and new ones, songs that I've been strumming on the guitar. They were just playing in my head. And something Thomas Hubel talked about was that we have these like personal DJs, and that often when we're young, parents will sing to their children to soothe them. And so that's what your own system might be doing, is like it can tell you're stressed, it can tell you're scared, and so it's trying to soothe you and it's trying to calm you down. So I created this imagery of like Chimdi the DJ like spinning tunes as she sees that I'm like scared and freaking out. Of course, immediately I just started crying because it made me realize, oh yeah, I was very, very scared coming into this experience, and that's exactly what I did, is I tried to soothe myself with music. So now every time when I find myself with a song stuck in my head, I'll think about like, oh, am I actually really stressed and really scared right now? One thing I've realized as a result of this retreat, and I already knew that anyway, is that I have this like low level fear / anxiety that's like always humming in my system, and I often have songs just playing in my head, and I often will play music here in the apartment, and I'll just be constantly trying to like calm my anxious nervous system. That was a really big insight for me, and it brought me a lot of peace, and even just realizing all the different ways, like we have so many coping mechanisms and often we want to get rid of them because we don't like them, but to realize just how much wisdom and intelligence is behind the things we do to keep ourselves safe and to keep ourselves comfortable just brought me a lot of appreciation and gratitude. Sharing that with you in case you're someone who has a personal DJ who's constantly spinning tunes when you try to meditate or at other other times in your life. The second thing that I wish I knew / learned was that getting to sit in silence is a privilege. I was going into the retreat, and I think if you've watched some of my videos, if you watched my live before I went into the retreat, I was very much like, I'm being forced to do this retreat. I don't want to do this, because I knew I was scared. I had a lot of resistance to the entire experience. I think I wasn't the only one. And when we got to the retreat center, we had a lot of questions. We had a lot of questions about how this was gonna go down, logistical questions, emotional questions. We really wanted to know, like, what is this that we're getting into, right? One of the first things Thomas Hebel said once all the questions were done was, he was like, you know, just to do a little bit of a reframe, real quick, it is a privilege to get to leave your life for a whole week and sit in silence 7 days, morning to night. Like, that's a privilege. Many people do not have lives that allow them to have that much non-stop time dedicated to their own internal journey, dedicated to connecting with God, dedicating to healing and deepening their self-awareness and their connection to the divine. Like, the fact that we get to do this is a privilege. And I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah. It is a privilege. It is a privilege. And it was interesting because going into the retreat, people would say, like, my coaching clients and my coaches and my, you know, people would be like, enjoy your retreat, you know, have fun. And I'd be like, first off, this isn't gonna be some fun vacation I'm doing, okay? This is gonna be an intensive 7-day trauma healing meditation retreat, all right? This is not a walk in the park, all right? This is a gauntlet. This is a trial and a tribulation that I'm walking through to get to the healing on the other side. That was my intention going into it. And so they saw what I could not see, which is that it's incredible on a couple of levels. So not only on the logistical level, that I have the time, finances, capacity, and willingness to spend that much time in silence doing this inner work, but also that I'm at the point in my spiritual journey where this is something that's important to me and I'm taking action on it. We all have a variety of different ways we come to our spiritual journeys. For a lot of people, there is a lot of suffering that has to happen. And we're in situations that are really, really hard and we don't know why. And we've cycled through them a few times. We're like, why am I in this same bad relationship? Why am I in this same bad job? Why am I having this same bad fight? Like, we just keep going, suffering, until we finally are like, wait, hold on. This is not, things can be different, things should be different, things can be better. How do I make it better? And then we start doing that inner work. So it says something that I passed the point of mindless, endless, repeatable suffering to the point of like, you know what? There may be some personal responsibility. there may be something, I may be the common denominator in all of this, and maybe I should do some work on myself. So that's a big deal, you know? And there's a lot more joy and grace and beauty and love in my life because I went through all those trials and tribulations. And some people are very much still in the sort of endless, mindless, no way out trial and tribulation stage. And I'm very grateful that I'm not there no more. And if you are there right now, I'm sending you love, because it's a nightmare, but know that there is totally a way out, and it is hard, but it's worth it. The third thing I learned was about the power of walking meditation. So I've done walking meditations with like apps where I just like, you know, I go out on my little walk and a voice is like, oh, think of how you're connecting to the ground and, you know, all these things. And I'm like, And I thought the walking meditations that we did during this retreat would be similar, and it was way more intense. And I was shocked because I knew the silent meditations where there were no distractions around all the stuff coming up in our systems. I knew that would send me into weeping. The fact that just walking slowly sent me into weeping, I was like, ugh. Because what I would do is I would try to close my eyes and I would practice walking. And of course the point is to like really feel your body as you walk, feel all the different parts as you're walking. And what I noticed was like, even with walking, which I've been doing for decades, not new to it. I would notice like with every step, there was a fear that came up before my foot hit the ground again. And Thomas gave us some guided meditation as we were walking around, like, you know, these are the steps that you take through life and this and that. And I think it was connecting to the fact that obviously for me, walking is a commonplace thing, but there was a time, that's what I connected to. It was like, oh, there was a time when I was young where like this was something I was learning, and it was scary and it was new, and every step was tentative. Reconnecting to that fear, but also to the resilience of like, I can't do this yet, but I know I can, and I know it's possible. So I'm gonna keep taking every single step, even if it's slow, even if I fall down, I'm gonna get back up. So reconnecting to that resilience, and then reconnecting to falling, and is someone there to help me up? Am I getting up on my own? Am I walking into the arms of someone? Like, I don't know if we have memories that early of when we're learning to walk, because you know, often you'll see images of like babies walking or toddlers walking, and like they walk into their parents' arms, and I was like, is that what it was like for me? Like, I don't know. And so really connecting to being that young and vulnerable, where literally it's like, I'm learning how to move in this world. It was really transformative, and I did not expect that at all. So if you are going to a silent retreat that involves walking meditations, heads up that it may be more emotional than you think. And it also really showed me the ways, truly just the ways I walk through life. And especially like, I would take these big steps, scared. And it was only after a few steps / meditations that I realized, like, you know, you can take smaller steps. And if you feel that things are shaky, you don't have to keep going. You can stop and pause and ground yourself. And then when you're ready to take the next step, then you can take it. Because when I look at a lot of my like life choices, it's a lot of, I'm just gonna quit this job. No, I don't have another job lined up. I'm gonna figure it out. Like, just like huge, oh, I wanna travel, I'm gonna sell all of my stuff and just go travel for a year nonstop. Like huge leaps. I'm grateful for who I am, and I'm grateful for my journey. And I see the way that there was a lot of fear that I was walking with, and I didn't realize that I could do it another way. I didn't realize you can like chill, you know? And I think a big thing in this spiritual journey is also about how there's not this point we're going to arrive at. We are actually here. That's the whole point, is we are here. And about, you know, we're getting things out of the way emotionally, trauma-wise, that's keeping us from being here in this moment. So to walk and realize like, oh, I'm not walking to get to the other side of the room. That's not the point. It's like, how quickly can I walk to the other side? The point is to be with myself while I'm walking, to walk to the point where you can find pleasure in walking. That was new for me. Like, I like going on walks, but it was more about the experience of being outside and the fresh air and the nature and all of that. And now I'm like, oh, anything, this is something that I think Eckhart Tolle said. He was like, anything you do with your full attention becomes pleasurable. Like, if you take a deep breath, with your full attention, it can become this pleasurable thing. So to get to the point in the walking meditation where I was like, oh, walking is, this feels good. Like, that was really cool. The fourth thing has to do with my creative coaching. So I'm a coach, and I support other artists and designers so they can create consistently and authentically. I have experienced already the way trauma healing has supported my clients and my own coaching practice, because I myself have more skills to support my clients, and I use sort of trauma-informed practices in supporting my clients. But one thing that was even more clear to me was that, you know, we can't see what we can't see. So we're walking around this world thinking we see other people. This is something Thomas talked about. He was like, we think we see other people, and we do on some level, but there's all these parts of other people that we just don't see. And in our own life, we don't see it. And we're missing those vitamins. We're missing those minerals in our own life because of our experiences. And so what trauma healing does is allow for you to get these updates in your own experience, in your own seeing, which then allows you to see the world and other people more accurately. And so if you're someone who works with people, you really want to sort of turn on as much as these, he kind of used this term as like we each have a switch for all these different capacities, and in life they're all pending. At any point you can turn any of them on, And if you're someone who works with people, you want to turn as many of them on as possible, because then you'll be able to see that at work in your clients. And that was really exciting for me, because I want to do that anyway, just like for myself, being able to see. But one thing that really struck me when he was talking about it was, in your own life, you can only see what you see, and in those areas of your life, things are flowing. And in the other areas of your life, you don't realize what you don't see, you just run into difficulties. So that's how you know you're missing something, is that there's an area of your life where you're like, ooh, once again, this is a challenge, this is tough. We're back at it again, back at ground zero, back at step one. And that was so helpful for me. And I actually want to make a separate video about, oh, I am missing something, and how if we ground ourselves in that question in our healing journey, we can really get to the solutions, a lot of the things that we're walking with. This next tip or thing that I learned, you really should open them hips beforehand. Really open them hips beforehand. I used to love yoga, and I still love yoga, but I have truly fallen off on my practice. I have not been doing it. And there's so much sitting cross-legged, and we had chairs as well, but I enjoy sitting cross-legged too, so I was just really feeling it in them hips. And I was like, oh, I should have just done a little bit of hip opening exercises before this retreat. That's a quick one. I'm just gonna give that to you. Open them hips. On that same note, I'm gonna include it as the same tip. Presumably, if you're about to do a 7-day retreat, you probably have a regular meditation practice. But if you don't, get one, because I used to consider meditating the 10 minutes of shavasana I did after doing yoga a few times a week. I was like, I'm meditating when I'm lying there after moving my body, like that counts. They encouraged us to do an hour a day, and I try to do my little hour. Sometimes I do my half hour, sometimes I wouldn't do it at all. Knowing that this retreat was coming up, I was like, all right, let me do what I can to prepare myself for this. And so I started doing 45-minute. Let me know if you're interested in it, I'll share it with you. There's a Thomas Hubel meditation that he's got, it's 45 minutes. And so I would just do that every day to prepare myself. I was actually talking to a friend. Someone had told her that like the ideal amount of meditating is an hour a day. And she was like, an hour a day? And I was sitting there like, yeah, like that's kind of what you gotta do. So like even that for some people is a lot. So to go from just that, and for me it was 45 minutes, to then like, all right, 40 minutes, 20 minutes walking, 5-minute break, back to it, 40 minutes. And I'm just like, oh, this is so much. It's so much sitting. So just prepare yourself by opening your hips and doing your meditations, creating a practice so that it is not so insane when you start, to have to do it for however many hours every single day for 7+ days. The 6th thing that I learned / wish I knew / appreciated / tip is that the integration is a mofo. I'm not cursing as much because apparently YouTube doesn't like cursing. Annoying. This is how censorship happens. This is how censorship happens. But yeah, the integration is horrible. It's terrible. It's nightmarish. It's bad. And that's an exaggeration. But it's really intense. It's really, really intense. I'm recording this on a Saturday, so it's been just under a week that I've been integrating. I say today I'm feeling more back than I've ever been, which is great. But those first couple of days, spontaneous weeping. Walking down the street, weeping, and I'm someone who, and I talk to y'all about it, I weep all the time. I love it, it's detoxing. That's what I've been telling myself too, is I've been weeping is like, we're detoxing. So love it, big fan. But having no control over it, like being in the grocery store, like hold it in, it's kind of intense. It's kind of intense. On the other hand, and with that, there's also so much beauty with the integration, and this is something Thomas shared, is that you won't really know the effect that the silence has had on your life until you are back in your life. And I found all of these really beautiful, subtle ways that my life was bigger and better and more improved as a result of the meditation. So for instance, I go for this walk in my neighborhood and there are a set of trails, you know, nearby. I've seen the sign for the trails that describe like, oh, here are these trails, they're maintained, blah, 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 you know, all don't smoke, don't do drugs, like, you know, all these kinds of things talking about the rules of the trails. However, every time I go to that area, there's also a paved road through the trees. So I always just walk up this paved road, enjoy the forest. I'm like, what a treat. Bring myself back. And I'm like, what a great walk, you know, and I'm good. I got back from the silent retreat, and this is the first time it clicked that the trails were not the paved road, and that I had an interest and a curiosity and a safety in my body to be alone as a woman to start walking through the woods. And so I was like, oh, trails, let me see. And I started going into the trails, and it's a whole beautiful trail system right in my neighborhood. And if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I have a whole relationship to living here in Maryland and to accepting that I live here. And there's been a lot of resistance, and I've always wanted to be somewhere cooler. I always wanted to live in Brooklyn, all this kind of stuff. And as I was walking through this trail system, I was like, do I live in a great neighborhood? Like, not even a good neighborhood. Am I like really blessed? Am I like very deeply blessed to live here rent-free in this beautiful neighborhood? Like, it clicked in a way that has never clicked before. That's just an example of how like, oh wow, there are things in your life right now that you just literally can't see. And it's not a matter of like hunting for it. You just can't see it. But if you do the healing, if you clear it out of your system, it will appear to you. You don't have to go out and search for it. It will literally just appear because it's always been there. And the final and seventh thing that I learned as a result of the retreat was that you don't actually have to tell people everything about your experience. As we were wrapping up the retreat, and we had one tribe at the very end where we talked to a couple other people about what like came up for us, and there was so much came up. It was a week, like so many deep processes happened. And something Thomas Hubel reminded us is like, as we go back into our life, other people have not gone through the same experience that we've gone through. It's great if they understand, but they don't have to. Like there's no mandate that they have to understand us. And there are certain people who can hold us and who can hold our experience and who can hold the sacredness of it and can really honor our journey and our work and what we've been through and what we're processing and all of these intense traumatic movements and all of that. And some people can't, and that's okay. As I've been talking, and this is already one of my longer videos, there are so many things that I haven't shared, you know, and part of me really wants to share them, but there's a shift and there's a difference where I don't feel compelled to share. Like before with YouTube, I feel this real compulsion to want to share everything, where I'm like, I'm back to playing guitar and I want to be like, I need to make a video about how I'm back to playing guitar and why and the journey and what I'm learning and now I'm just like, you know, it's okay. Like some things can be for you, and that's great and that's beautiful. And not that we're hiding and keeping secrets, but we don't need to just kind of be always just out, just always kind of, you know, and it really reflects the energy moving outwards all the time. Like we can have the energy sort of sit inside of our own bodies, and that's been really new for me. And I do feel the difference, that more of my energy is sitting here grounded, rooted in my base than it was, you know, flying out in the world and flying out into the world, which I'm very grateful for. Those are my reflections on my silent retreat. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, if you've done a retreat yourself, any reflections you have. Patreon people and subscribers, you are so sexy, and it's so hard being single knowing that I have such sexy people watching me every single week. It's like, wow. Wow. If you want, I've got a coaching Instagram, Coaching by Chimdi. Give it a follow and join my newsletter, which I am restarting, so you can get more updates and like learnings and book recommendations and podcast recommendations. All right, I love y'all. Bye.